Picture this, there are two friends going to the movies to watch the same movie. And after the movie, they do what we all do immediately after a movie. They ask each other, what did you think of the movie? Well, it turns out one of them loved the movie. The person found the movie entertaining, action-packed, and they absolutely loved the storyline. However, the other person hated it. It was cringe, the acting was bad, and the use of CGI was terrible. Who is right here? Naturally, they both are. It's the same movie, but they both saw and experienced it differently, and both are equally right. And I stole this analogy from my supervisor, who loves to use it to highlight how in anyone's situation, it is possible for different realities to exist. And for better or for worse, the same will apply when it comes to how others perceive your child. And this is what this month's video is about. One of the children we see was in a daycare where the educator simply could not believe the things that we were telling them the child could do. And because they didn't believe it, they didn't see it. They didn't see all the good that the child was doing. All they saw was a child who was disruptive and effectively nonverbal and physically challenging to manage. You see, you can have a team of the most experienced and skilled therapists and educators around your child, but if they do not see your child in the same way and do not have the same expectations for your child, you're going to find that making progress is going to be very slow and just downright frustrating. And here's why. If educators see your child as not being capable and disruptive, they'll miss a lot of the good things that a child is doing, and things like pushing will be viewed from the lens that a child is simply being naughty or aggressive. Now, you might be wondering, isn't all pushing naughty or aggressive? No, because some children, particularly autistic children, will push others to initiate play, and the absolute last thing we want in this situation is for a child who is trying to initiate play with others to be stopped, or worse, told off for doing so. And in fact, most children we work with will eventually get to this point, almost like a checkpoint on the social skills journey. So while pushing isn't ideal, the intention behind it is. But if we only see the pushing and remove a child from those situations, you're not only shutting down an opportunity for social interactions, you're actually telling a child to stop trying to initiate play with others. And this is where perception really matters. I just gave a more behavioral or social example, but what if it was about your child's language ability or cognitive ability? What kind of skills are not being fostered simply because they are not being seen? And the reason they're not being seen is not because an educator isn't looking at them, it's because they don't expect to see those skills. So going back to this family, obviously changing daycares is a very disruptive process, so we'll try to do everything we can to support the educators. But if things aren't changing in terms of the educators' mindsets, which by the way is very difficult to do, then we would have to firstly weigh up the downsides to a child's development if they were to remain at the same daycare versus potential disruptions that moving to a new daycare might also cause. And then layer on top of that the potential benefits of remaining at the same daycare versus moving to a new daycare where the educators might be more in line with how we are seeing things. And in this case, it was a no-brainer. The upsides of moving far exceeded any potential downsides that a change in routine would bring. We supported the family to tour their new daycare, spoke to the educators to ensure that they were seeing things in the same way, and supported the child transition to new daycare to try and mitigate the disruption that I mentioned earlier. Thankfully, the team at the year's new daycare centre has been incredible, and we're immediately able to create a supporting and enriching environment for the child, which brought out the best of him. The difference in the child was just night and day. All of a sudden, he was joining in for group time, playing with others and speaking in full sentences and having conversations. And all it took was a change in environment, more specifically, a change in the way he was being seen by the people in the environment.